Good afternoon. Today is Friday, June 13th, 2025, and the time is 4:30 p.m. This meeting of the Prosper ISD Board of Trustees is hereby called to order according to Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Representing the quorum this afternoon are Mr. Webb, Mr. Dial, Mrs. Dixon, Mr. Cavender, Mr. Linker, Mr. Van Wolf, and myself, Bill Beavers. The Board of Trustees extends a heartfelt gratitude to our entire Prosper ISD community. We're deeply appreciative of our residents who approved a $2.7 billion bond for new schools construction, our dedicated teachers and staff who tirelessly serve our students and families, our parents who support our teachers and campuses through volunteering and partnering with us in their child's education, our exceptional campus and district leadership who we believe are the finest in the great state of Texas and continuously strive for excellence. Your collective commitment to Prosper ISD is what makes our district thrive. Thank you for choosing and supporting our schools. Mr. Dial is going to pray for us this evening.
Join me in prayer. Father God, I'm grateful for your call on each one of the individuals sitting up here this afternoon to serve this great community, to do what's best for kids always. God, and just to show up each and every time we meet with that interest at heart. God, I just pray that our discernment and wisdom would be given to each of us this afternoon as we see the business before us. God, we pray for the families that are traveling this summer, enjoying break. We pray for our staff that's traveling this summer. God, just keep them safe, give them rest and rejuvenation, preparing each one of them to come back ready to conquer the year that's ahead of us. We love you, Lord. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And then Mrs. Dixon, you've got the board vision.
Yes, the board's vision is to ensure a safe and supportive educational environment that promotes academic excellence and opportunities, honors traditions, fosters student learning, facilitates effective recruitment and retention of talented educators, and grows all people at all levels.
Thank you. As always, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, which can be found in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. All of our voting must be in public, but we can privately discuss certain items, including but not limited to matters regarding individual employees, individual students, land acquisitions and real estate, school safety and security, and matters requiring legal advice. However, after that private discussion, any final vote must be in complete view of the public. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the agenda for tonight's meeting was posted for the public to view at least 72 hours before the meeting. We now have some future dates in front of you. You will see also this evening the board is a little more casual. It is the summertime, so we didn't quite go Hawaiian shirt Friday, but we're a little more relaxed today. Okay, that brings us to we have no comments on agenda-related items. We have one signed up for non-agenda related items. That'll be here in just a little while. So that will bring us to informational reports.
Yes, so student enrollment, you can see that we're tracking right now at 2,951 students for an add year over year. We're certainly tracking enrollment to each week. There's an update and a report because we have students that are still coming in the queue and being enrolled. And of course, you are getting those numbers every week on where we are. We know too that some of those students are sitting in student numbers. They may or may not be in Prosper ISD because we get down to school starting and then maybe parents have moved, sold homes, whatever the case is. So we'll try to keep y'all up to date as much as we possibly can each week throughout the summer as the growth continues. And then we have our report on Bond 2019 and Bond 2023 construction projects. I believe we have a video that highlights each of those projects. And next up, we have Dr. Penn with our quarterly financial informational report.
All right, good evening. So we will look at the quarterly financials as of the end of April 2025. So starting out, these are all of our investment reports split up by funds. We have completed our bond sale that will show up on the next round of financials when we receive that money in likely early July. That's where you can see the biggest difference between this year and last year were in those bond funds. And then everything else, tracks what you'd expect, just small increases in campus activity and food service, general fund, just with the growth of general fund items. This next slide is the same breakdown by where the assets are held. Some of the differences there is we've not invested into areas that we have in previous years. Then we're going to start looking at the general fund revenue, just the graphic representation of, really at this point, at the end of April, most of our taxes were collected, and then the rest of the year, the bulk of what's going to roll in is on the state revenue side of that 347. So this is a good breakdown about where those funds are. Really, at this point, we've even received a few more of the taxes, but most of the taxes are in, and then you'll see the state revenue continue to really increase even after the year's ended through settlement with the state. This has got a revised budget of 340, or just really the original budget at 347. We've moved some things around within there. We will bring an amendment next month to kind of finalize a little bit where we're closer to, but really at this point, we believe we'll land at about $356 million on the revenue side for the year. And so we will kind of get that a little closer to where it'll be with an amendment next month. On the expenditure side, again, just as we normally always talk about, the bulk of it is in salaries. And so as we look at this compared to where we've been in the previous year, really everything tracking where it would be kind of historically in line with where things are. We think our expenses are going to land about $353 million on the expense side. So at this time, we're projecting an add of about $2.5–3 million to the fund balance. This being through the end of April, you still have May, June, July, and August left for expenses to kind of see what happens on those and any kind of summer projects we take on. And the new staff that we hire and pay for in August will hit this year, some things like that. But we are expecting a conservative add to fund balance this year. This is the kind of the same expense breakdown in just those different function levels which you adopt at. So you can again see that the majority of the budget is in those instructional areas, things that support the campus and how we're performing. So the total budget adopted on that right there was $362 million, but plan to land at about $353 million for the year. And then looking at the bond projects, so the 2019 bond, we're wrapping that up with some of these final projects. And so you can see Thompson, Mosley, and Richland, all of which opened this year. Those are really kind of getting the tail end of those projects. And that's the spend through April. And then this next slide is Prop A. Remember, we split into the different propositions. So in 2023, these are some projects that are coming out of the new bond, in the 2023 bond. You can see we've got a portion of Richland there. The renovations, as that scope changes over years, that budget for that can increase, and that's why you see some of the difference there. And then Bridges and Watkins Middle School, which will open a year from now. So that's why there's still the distance to go on there. And Smotherman Elementary, which will also open this year out of the new bond. The next ones are kind of busy slides, but they're just focusing on the technology expenses. The first one, it really looks at the particular devices, and then the second slide is some similar information about what campuses they support. And that is the quarterly financials through April. I know you've had some time to review them in advance, and we've spent some time together previously, but if you've got anything else, and then if not, I will head on to the next one. Anything?
Go ahead with
All
the
right.
preliminary budget.
So then the next one, we're going to take kind of that information and start with a preliminary budget for next year, the 25-26 year. So we're going to go as quickly as I can, just a refresher on school funding and then also some legislative changes that we've seen this year. A lot of that we are still receiving. The governor signed the House bill or the bill for it, I think 9 days ago, so it's going to be a while till we get all of the details about it. So we're going to share what we know about it right now. First look at tax rate, some revenue projections for the year, expense projections, and the overall fund balance impact, and then what's in the coming month. That's the order we're going to go through. So just a reminder, we talk about this a lot, but we are formula funded. There's a formula that's set by the state. That determines how much money we will receive. It's filled up first with what is collected from the local tax base, and then if there's a difference, the state will supplement the rest of that. If you raise more than you're needed, so envision the bucket overflowing, that money goes back to the state in a process called recapture. And so just remember, just as one share goes up, meaning we collect more taxes, and the state goes down, and there's a relationship there. So on the tax rate, this was estimated compression. They've actually just sent something out yesterday, so I do think that is going to go down 2 to 3 cents. But we didn't have the tax compression because we were waiting on some of the rulings. So we should know more of that, but we will be at whatever the state's floor is for that Tier 1 tax rate. And so we'll see probably 2 to 3 penny drop from there for our tax rate. And that is our general operating fund as well as our debt service payment. That's our rate. I want to talk about, I know there's a lot of text here, and you've had this information for a little bit, and you've got it on your screen there, but I'll run through briefly just some highlights from the legislative changes. So we've seen a $45 allotment. This is a new allotment to support all the staff that is not teachers within a certain set of experiences, called this support staff allotment, and that's $45 per student average daily attendance. In a minute, we'll get into some compensation slide. The state put specific funds in place for teachers with 3 years of experience or more. The basic allotment, which is what we talk about a lot in terms of the money per student, which is what has generally been advocated by a lot of schools to increase because it does provide greater local control for the school district to funnel the funds where they see best, was increased by $55. This was really done by a freeze in the golden pennies, which is part of the TRE election that the district did years ago. And so we'll see that although the basic allotment fund goes up, some of those Tier 2 pennies and what they yield actually goes down in a way that actually does not benefit us in the long run. There's a new allotment that is allotment for basic costs. It's $106 per enrolled student. This is to go with certain costs such as utilities and transportation, insurance and taxes and things of that nature. I think we saw a lot through this legislative session, more specifying what the funds are for. So instead of increasing things in basic allotment, really tying it to certain areas to kind of direct the way school districts are to use them. And then also so that the state would be able to have greater insight into what the funds are being used for. There is additional funding going to special education, but they're going to change that entire formula structure. And so they're putting $250 million towards that. But that will not be in place until fiscal year 27, which is a year away. And so we'll be monitoring that to see what that looks like. They are going to begin next year at $1,000 per evaluation. And that's not something that we've previously needed to project because that's not really been on our radar. But that, along with a number of these, are things that we're going to have to now record and project that we did not have to previously to try to make the best projections for our budget. There is an increase in the school safety allotment, which was $20 per average daily attendance and $33,540 per campus. That's about double what they were. So for us, our early thought on that is about $1.5 million in safety. We spend over $3.5 million. So even though that funding is doubled, we spend over double what the funding is. We do hope that with this the specificity of where these funds go, that will help us in future advocacy efforts because we'll be able to show what we spend in these areas and where the funds are coming from, and we'll be able to note that we spend over double what we're receiving in that area. There was a small weight added to kindergarten to third grade average daily attendance to help cover the cost of the second half of day, so we're going to full day pre-K, but pre-K is funded at half day, so I am hopeful that in the future they will do that could be turned into full funding because we are serving them in that capacity. But there's a number of things that we're going to be waiting for TA to kind of make some rules based on what the the bill set forward. I'm going to cover this. These are not projections that we've created. These are from a partner that we have that does runs. So these are in the ballpark of areas what we might receive. What you're looking at on the left is the 25-26, and on the right, the 26-27, the next 2 years in the biennium. And it is comparing each one, the current law as it is now versus the new Senate version of the House Bill 2, and the difference in terms of what you would gain or lose. So while not exactly for us, I do think this is a good way to display the differences of how we think it will impact us. I want to start with the regular program allotment, that 1.3 million and then 1.4 in the yellow. That is funded by the the $55 million, $55 increase per ADA. We'll see on the next slide on the enrichment pennies amount that offsets that and then some that we're losing because of freezing that golden penny yield. So, but that is a small increase from a regular program allotment. The next one I want to highlight is this teacher retention allotment at the 8.5 and 8.6. That is the primary amount in that fund is the $5,000 for teachers with 5 years of experience or more, and the $2,500 for 3 and 4 years of experience and more. So that really is going to function as a flow through. The state is going to have a way to see who those people are for us and give us that money, and then we will pass it on to them through salary. So while it looks like new money, it is really flowing through directly to those teachers. It also has the $45 per ADA that's supposed to support everybody else. Both of those are in that breakout. That allotment for basic costs, that is the 106 per student enrolled. That is covering other things such as insurance, utilities. And I promise you we spend significantly more than that 3.3 and 3.6. And so that's kind of, I think, going to be a future talking point for us, that if there's an allotment for these, then we can show what we're actually spending in those areas. So that total increase you're seeing on this Tier 1 entitlement, which is about 17 million for each year the next 2 years in comparison to what the law would have been. This is the basic entitlement, also Tier 1, that everybody gets. This next slide that I'm going to focus on is Tier 2. So this is the next level of funding. Enrichment is a common word for this. It's funded by the additional pennies that we've done through the TRE election. And you'll see there at the top the decrease. In the first year, it's $810,000 less than what we would have done if they had not frozen that value of the golden pennies. And then you see, because it's tied to what, as property value grows, the pennies generate more funds. And so you see the impact, assuming that the value continues to grow, to 3.8 loss the next year. So even though the basic allotment, if you go back to the previous slide, is showing the gain of 1.5, we're losing it at 3.8 on the other end. And so the net difference of those, if you're looking towards the bottom, the gain is 16.7 in the first year and 14 the next, when comparing what our current law is to the changes in the Senate version of the House Bill 2. So that's going to drive some of the revenue that we talk about in a minute. So required compensation, one of the action items later tonight is compensation on there. So we've got it broken into a couple of areas. So this first part are things that are mandated. So teachers with 3 to 4 years of experience are going to generate $2,500 increase, and with 5 or more, it's going to be $5,000. The way, and again, this communication came out yesterday evening as well. They're looking at PEIMS coding. If someone is coded in 087, there is guidance that tell us how to code different staff members. I do think we're going to see greater direction from the state on this because it's never impacted people's compensation before. So what this is generally for us is going to be people that have classroom, grade book, and things of that nature. We have had some people that are on the teacher scale, but they are not going to generate those funds, and the district cannot afford to support that without receiving the supporting funds to do that. And so we are going to have to make some changes on the way that scale works. But again, this is driven in statute and what we're required to do. Beyond that, what we're recommending for honoring even our newer teachers to the field and hopefully encouraging them to stay in the field, and also in easing communication, is recommending that we would offer the teachers that have been here going into their first and second years of experience to give them the same $2,500. So that is not being funded in the formula, but we're recommending to continue to do that. All other staff, so everyone that does not meet that teacher role, we're recommending a 4% increase for those other staff. So we've listed some samples there, but it would be for 4% for everyone. This would also adjust our new hire teaching scale to be 62,250, and extending the top of our scale from those with 25 to 30 years hiring to give them a scale number. Some highlights. Anticipating continued growth. Our growth, we do think at the moment, is starting to slow a little bit, but we do still anticipate a large growth next year. Continuing to receive on the fast growth allotment side, and then projecting continued decreased interest rates on our funds. So right here, this is going to look at our 24-25 original budget, so not the one I was mentioning about a minute ago where I think we're actually going to land, because I like to do budget to budget. I think that's the best apples to apples comparison for you. So we're seeing a $43.6 million increase. You'll see most of that on the state revenue side. So the reason why that is going to be is, so even though we've added additional houses and commercial values and things like that, the state's also likely going to get past a homestead exemption increase from 100,000 to 140,000. And then there's a homestead increase also for the 65 and older. We don't, because that has just come out, we don't have any updated numbers from like appraisal districts and tax offices. So we've made the best assumptions that we can with the information we have on how much of that is going to be in taxes. So with the extra value, also the losing of the value, we feel like this is where it's going to be at about the tax and state. As we get more information, really all you should see is those numbers shifting between the local tax and the state revenue. It's not going to change total dollars, just maybe where it is. On the expense side, we've added 566 positions since the 24-25 budget adoption. That's approximately $55 million with new employees, staff raises. The average cost of a new employee, we've seen this jump from last year because of the required raises on our teaching staff. That's obviously going to, because teachers are the bulk of our staff, it's going to drive up our average cost of an employee. It's $82,000. You see that broken down at $66,250. You also see this $15,000 approximate associated cost with that. The state does not fund that, so they give us the $5,000 for the staff or the $2,500, but then any additional costs that are generated based off that percentage, we are covering that ourselves. And then the non-personnel expenses. So we are opening 4 campuses this next year, middle school, high school, and 2 elementary. So you'll continue to see that increases all of our contracts, which is property insurance, utilities, landscaping, custodial, additional funds for all of those secondary programs, technology software licenses, new employees, and all that associated with it. So there's a lot of accompanying expenses as well. And then an early projection on recapture payment, but that can definitely move as we get more details on the homestead exemption, things like that. Plugging in that information to the 24-25 original budget, and then those increased requests, you can see how much of that is in the payroll and how much of that is in the non-payroll, increasing the expenses side about $74 million, and then the preliminary budget number there on the expense side at $436 million. So comparing at the end of this year, there's our approximated end as of right now, putting approximately $2.5 million back towards fund balance, and then the projected deficit for next year at 40. These are not updated. We have, what we've done is we've backed out some of our expenses on the expense side. Historically, we've had about $10 million left on the expense side, which that percentage most recently is about 2.5%. And so we've backed that out of our expense side. We want to make sure that we're being as close to what we actually think we're going to land. And we're projecting about a $39 million deficit next year. We know that there's some challenges with that, and we've taken some steps already towards staffing for next year to begin working on that. But our current deficit projected is about $39 million. From there, what our next steps are in the coming months is monitoring continued enrollment as we continue to see what that rolls in, as we look at vacancies, really deciding if we need to replace those, and really focusing on those as we hire people, looking at the payroll budget, continuing as we get updated renewals and budget requests, and then really watching as we get more details on the legislative information as that rolls out and we get better tools to project. Next meeting in July, we'll present functional level changes. That'll give kind of greater detail to where these are coming from. We'll also present the debt service and food service projections. And then we'll get certified values late July, which will give us better direction on what's going to be tax collection and state aid. And then in August, we'll receive our maximum compressed rate for TEA. We should be able to project it before then, but it will become official at that point. And then we will have our budget adoption and tax rate adoption late August. And then really looking ahead to future years, you can see some schools opening in the 26-27 year, and then 27-28 when we go through another legislative session and see what campuses will be opening at that time. That does complete the first look at the 25-26 budget.
Thank you, Dr. Penn. I do want to highlight, starting with the deficit this past year, and because of great work by our business and finance team being able to get that balanced on the M&O side, as well as the board working on that through the finance subcommittee, and really everybody coming together. There's nothing that is ever easy about carrying a deficit and then trying to whittle that down as you go through a school year. So just want to highlight the incredible work that's been done.
Thank you. Also, I would be remiss if I did not highlight a couple of names. I hate to be too long-winded here. But this obviously takes a lot to get to even just these few slides. And I want to thank from the HR team, Shara Hunt, Clint Poole, Chris Lilly, and Andrea Hendrickson. And on the finance team, Carrie Croy and Ashley Lopez. And I'm sure I'm missing some people there, but they've all been instrumental in trying to really finalize these numbers and with really short information, try to project what some of these things could mean for us. And so I do appreciate all of their work as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Penn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Penn.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to number 7, consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Sure. I move that the board approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wolf. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? That is all 7 of us, none opposed. Motion passes. That brings us to number 8, consideration possible action regarding the selection of a bank depository. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the board approve the selection of a bank depository as presented by administration.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Discussion on this. I know the board, we had a chance to go over this, look at, thank you to the finance team for going through everything, giving us a list of everything there and back into it. Any other thoughts, comments from anyone? Okay, hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor? That is all 7 of us, none opposed. Motion carries. Let's see here. I now have, before we do 8B, I have a statement to read on HB2 and compensation. Good afternoon, fellow board members, staff, and community members. This afternoon, I want to address the recent passage of House Bill 2 and its impact on compensation for our dedicated Prosper ISD employees. While we celebrate that HB2 provides historic funding increases for our classroom teachers, with a $2,500 increase for teachers with 3 to 4 years of experience and $5,000 increases for those with 5 or more years, we must acknowledge that the legislation presents significant challenges for our district's comprehensive approach to fair compensation. Like many districts across Texas, we find ourselves in a position where HB2's funding structure does not fully recognize the complexities of operating a world-class public school system. The bill's focus on classroom teachers, while well-intentioned, overlooks the critical contributions of our support staff, administrators, and specialized personnel who work tirelessly to ensure our students' success. The support staff allotment of $45 per average daily attendance included in HB2 falls short of providing adequate funding for meaningful compensation increases for our nurses, counselors, librarians, educational assistants, maintenance staff, and other essential team members. Additionally, the legislation provided no compensation allocation for our campus administrators and our district leadership who guide our schools and support our teachers daily. In keeping with our commitment to all Prosper ISD's employees, the board will consider using local funds to provide equitable compensation adjustments for those staff members not adequately addressed by state funding. We recognize that excellence in education requires a team effort, and every member of our Prosper ISD family deserves to be valued and compensated fairly. While we appreciate the state's investment in public education through HB2, we will continue advocating for comprehensive funding that recognizes the full scope of personnel needed to deliver exceptional educational experiences for our students. Our administration will present detailed recommendations for addressing these compensation gaps while maintaining our district's financial responsibility. We remain committed to supporting all our employees who make Prosper ISD the outstanding district our community deserves. Thank you. We'll also make sure that this statement is on the website for people to see. Which, with reading that, brings us to 8B, consideration and possible action regarding 2025-2026 employee compensation plan. So we are going to have a presentation on that, I believe.
He just did.
Oh, well, you're right. You just did that. Thank you, Dr. Penn. Appreciate that. Okay, with that, is there a motion?
I'll make-
Go ahead, Jordan.
I move that the board approve the 2025-2026 employee compensation plan as presented by administration.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Cavender. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight, and reiterate the statement you just made that we as a district leadership are showing support to all staff in the district that make this place great. And so to highlight, that's 2,500 to teachers with 1 to 2 years experience. That's all counselors, nurses, everybody that you mentioned in the letter would receive the 4% increase, maintenance staff, all that. What was there, one more I was missing?
5,000 for
Yeah.
teachers.
with more
20,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
500 for
I couldn't
zero.
remember them all. I wanted to make sure that it's highlighted, though, that we're, in the face of a large deficit budget, we're trying to care for our staff well.
Yeah, I want to thank you all as a board for supporting this, because there's nothing more vitally important than the staff that we have, and it truly takes every single person in this district to make the experience for a child what our parents are hoping for, what they moved here for. And so recognizing that a receptionist needs a raise just like a teacher needs a raise, or a maintenance worker needs a raise just like a custodian does, is truly appreciated. So thank you all for supporting our staff at such a high level.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else to add? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? That is all 7 of us, none opposed. So 8B passes.
Mr. Beavers, can we jump back? I don't think we said the name of the bank that was selected for the bank depository.
Yes, ma'am, we absolutely can on
8A.
8A.
Yes, 8A.
Dr. Wells Fargo. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong notes. Yeah, 8A is Wells Fargo. Assume everybody's still good on that.
Do we need to make that part of our motion?
Do we need to?
We might need to redo it
Okay.
just to make sure we've taken
All right, then.
official action with Wells Fargo. and-
Sure. All right, so we are going to do a consideration and possible action regarding the selection of a bank depository being Wells Fargo. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the board approve the selection of Wells Fargo as bank depository as presented by administration.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixon. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Same applies. All in favor? That is all 7 of us. Motion carries again.
I'm sorry. That
No,
was
no,
my
no, no.
fault.
Thank you for keeping us honest on that. Okay, and then so we are now at 8C, consideration possible action regarding change to the teacher appraisal system.
Yes, Mr. McLaughlin and Ms. Hunt. So Mr. McLaughlin, Deputy Superintendent, and Mrs. Hunt, Chief Human Resources Officer, have a joint presentation that should be lively and riveting between the two of you.
Happy Friday, everybody. Sharis and I are fully committed to making our discussion around the teacher appraisal system as close to a Friday night admission as impossible. Maybe a stun at the end from Sharis. Really, we wanted to share the work that we've been engaged with over the course of this year around the teacher appraisal system. You know, the thing about working in Prosper is that there is a commitment to excellence in all aspects of the organization. But the thing I think that makes Prosper unique and what makes Prosper Prosper is that within that pursuit of excellence, that we're also taking time to consider what our people's experience inside, the people that, not just our community, our kids, our families, but also what's the experience of our employees, in this case specifically, our teachers and our administrators. And then within that pursuit of considering their experience, when there's an opportunity to streamline something we do, make it more efficient, or take something off their plate, that we should pursue that. And that's what we're bringing forward tonight for your consideration, is modifying our appraisal system so that the time that teachers and administrators spend regarding getting coaching and feedback is less burdensome, more meaningful. So for lack of a better word, there are aspects of the teacher appraisal system that are arduous and time-consuming. There's many great elements around the T-test system, and we're looking to keep those. But we've also spent some time looking at the things that spend an inordinate amount of time on tasks that we think that we can take off the plate of both teachers and our administrators to give them more time to do around the last three things, which are tasks that are high impact, feedback-driven, and supportive to our teachers. All right, so truly, we're always trying to strike a balance. Usually, you know, an appraisal system never is all good or all bad, but somewhere in between is what we're looking to strike. And so we're proposing tonight an evaluation system that prioritizes people over processes, that is aligned to our new strategic plan, and one that's less cumbersome, but it provides a balance between meaningful coaching and actionable feedback, because the number one driver of improved teacher performance and in student outcomes is coaching and feedback with administrators and the teachers. So Sharis and I spent some time looking at the tasks. The items on the left are the tasks that would be required of teachers and administrator for a singular scheduled observation of a teacher's classroom. Pre-conference, which would occur before the observation, the formal observation, the written formal appraisal, and then the post-conference. Sharis and I both former principals, so we sat down and put a pencil to paper about the amount of time that we spent on each one of those tasks for one observation. So for the pre-conference, we spent, and then even the feedback we got from our current administrators, you're going to spend a minimum 30 minutes in the pre-conference. Most teachers are going to spend time in addition to that meeting with their administrator, collecting information, trying to provide the full context of what the administrator is going to see. So the teacher is going to spend time before the conference preparing for that to give the administrator the full context, 45 minutes for the formal observation, and then most administrators are going to go back through their notes of the observation, try to pick out what are the key pieces of feedback. They're going to score the evaluation, write a formal feedback. They're going to spend about 45 minutes in that, and then there's going to be at least 45 minutes in the post-conference. So for one scheduled formal observation, very likely an administrator will spend over 2 hours on one observation. So what we're hoping to do is reduce some of these tasks here and get more to the heart of what an evaluation system is supposed to hit on, which is effective feedback and coaching. All right, so the charge. This is what Sharis and I and our teams, the human resource team, the school leadership team, teaching and learning team, along with campus leaders, have been working throughout this year to review the T-test appraisal system that's currently in place and look at how we can refine this process to better serve our teachers. So the items on the right are the things that we did this year. We asked the group to come together throughout the fall and then into the spring and analyze our current evaluation process, what are the things that could be revised, but also consider the things that actually are impactful around our current evaluation system, the things that we want to keep in place. And then we would ask, after we would gather input in those sessions, for them to go back to their campus and seek input from teachers and other administrators on their campus, and then continue this feedback loop between
that feedback, the reflector group, and then feedback from the campus. And so we could make sure we were hitting the mark. We reviewed current board policy and benchmark our recommendations against what our neighboring districts are doing, and then made recommendations for changes that we're bringing forward tonight. So that reflector group, as they sat and they analyzed, the current process, the things that they identified as the items that they wanted to hang on to are on the right. They wanted to make sure that we were continuing to focus on continuous professional development for all teachers. We wanted to specifically honor teacher autonomy and trust. We have amazing teachers in this district. I know that you know that. But specifically in regards to honoring teacher autonomy for our teachers that are experienced, come to us over time, have demonstrated excellence, and our veteran teachers, that we honor their time and their autonomy, focus on outcome over processes, and try to find more time for collaboration and innovation in the classroom. So the bottom is the things that we're recommending stay the same within the T-test system. All teachers would engage in personal goal setting around their professional goals that relate to the campus goals, which are aligned with the district strategic goals. That each teacher would engage in a personal professional development plan. Every teacher would continue to get walkthroughs that wouldn't have to be scheduled in 2 hours of time. The administrators could walk into classrooms, which they do anyway, visit the classroom, and do what's most meaningful. What's been most meaningful in my own career, which is the best feedback I've gotten, is when my boss sits down with me and has a conversation around something they saw, gives me feedbacks, gives me tips, coaches. That's the driver in how people get better, is those conversations. Ongoing coaching and feedback, and then every teacher would engage in an end-of-the-year conference with their administrator. So what we're looking to modify is that for teachers that are veteran teachers, come with experience and meet the criteria, and Charles will talk about the criteria, that they would be eligible to engage in what we're calling a less than annual full appraisal. So in a 3-year cycle, they would go through a full appraisal, 1 out of those 3 years. The other 2 years, they would engage in the items in the blue box, but that during those 2-year cycles, they would just engage in those things, continue to get a summative appraisal, and continue to engage in the continuous improvement model.
All right, so Mr. McLaughlin talked about who's eligible and who's not eligible, and so that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So who would be considered for a less than annual appraisal? So first, I want to talk to you about the fact that we have staff that are appraised with instruments other than T-tests. So like our counselors, librarians, our nurses, our paraprofessionals, our office staff, they're not appraised with the T-test instrument. T-test is specifically for our teachers. So those that are appraised with other instruments aren't being considered for this. Okay? And so of those who are appraised with T-test, there will be teachers that are eligible and teachers that are not eligible. Of those that are, not of those. Those that are ineligible will be those that are in this right box that you see that's purple. We're calling it category B. These are the people who are going to come to us and are still on a probationary contract. So when someone enters the district for the first time, they're on a probationary contract. Even if they enter the district with experience from another school district, they're still going to be on a probationary contract with Prosper ISD for a period of time, 3 years. And so for 3 years, when you enter the district, you will still have an annual appraisal. Also, if a teacher is new to the teaching profession, which is a probationary contract, right? That means they have 0 years of experience, they're right out of university, or they may be an alternatively certified teacher. They will also be ineligible when they first enter the district. If you're new to Prosper ISD, but you come as a veteran teacher, you will be ineligible for the first 3 years while you're on that probationary contract. Anyone that might be on an action plan or a plan of support, meaning they need additional help as a teacher, they're not going to be eligible for this either. And then lastly, any teacher who may have received a rating of improvement needed on their last summative appraisal. You know, the summative appraisals take place at the end of the school year, around the April-May time. If there's any dimension within their appraisal rated improvement needed, then they won't be eligible either. So who is eligible? If you look on the left-hand side, those are your eligible teachers. We're calling it category A. Your eligible teachers are teachers that have a term contract. Those are your teachers who have been with us at least 3 full school years and are now in beginning their year 4 with us. Also, in order to be eligible, you have to have surpassed the other exclusionary criteria in the right box that's in purple, okay? All right, so this chart gives you an idea of what Bill was sharing with you earlier. It tells you what every teacher is doing over the course of the year. So your category B is all the way to the right. Again, that's your purple box. Those are the people ineligible for less than annual appraisals. They continue to have goal setting, professional development plan, the instructional walkthroughs, the ongoing coaching and feedback, the formal observation, and they receive a complete summative appraisal. Now, for your category A teachers, because they have less than annual appraisals every 3 years, then they'll have appraisal years and they'll have what we call a year without the full appraisal. When they don't have the full appraisal, they still have the goal setting and the professional development and the instructional walkthroughs and the ongoing coaching, but they don't have a formal observation. And at the summative conference, they will have what we call a modified summative conference. Your modified summative conference is going to include your domain 4. And it's also going to include goal setting and a review of their professional learning plan, whether or not they met what they said they would meet at the start of the year. Now, on their appraisal year, they'll have everything that your category B folks will have, which is your complete summative appraisal, okay? Now, this is just an illustration of what happens every 3 years. So your teachers that are eligible will be broken into 3 cycle groups. They'll have an appraisal year, a non-appraisal year, another non-appraisal year, and then they'll cycle back to the full appraisal year. We needed to do some updates to our board policy in order to propose this to you. So we brought some proposed revisions. The screenshot on the left is our current policy, and you'll see on the right that we're proposing quite a few amendments. And so here's what they boil down to. We want to include information about an annual appraisal exception, which is what we just shared with you. How would a teacher be eligible for this exception? Also, what would require them to have less than annual appraisals, and what would that mean? And then how frequent would we conduct these appraisals? And we talked about that a moment ago. It would be every 3 years. And then what would that annual review process include when you are not in your appraisal year? And everything I just shared with you in the previous slides is what's summarized in our new board proposal, policy proposal.
So what we're hoping to do is move from the scripted, one-time, specific moment in time with a teacher that's super time intensive for the administrator and the counselor, move away from that, more time with teachers, greater touch points at shorter intervals that would provide for better coaching and feedback in an evaluation system that we think would be more impactful for our classrooms. So I'll close with this. Rather than a one moment in time that takes two and a half hours for the administrator and probably the same for teachers, that we move more to what we're working on in all areas of the organization, which is creating a collaborative environment where each member of the professional learning community is responsible for their own growth, but also responsible for growing the people that are next to them in that building. So less around just a singular moment between an administrator and a teacher, and that every member on that list there is part of helping teachers grow, get feedback, and improve as educators, from their principal, assistant principal, members of their leadership team for our newest teachers, mentor teachers, their collaborative teams on each campus, instructional coaches, curriculum coordinators, and our specialists, that everyone has a part in growing teachers. And we think that this proposal will allow more of this to occur because we're freeing people up from some of the time that's spent on what we would call arduous tasks. So finally, we're proposing tonight a change in policy and a modification in our practice that we believe will be more impactful for our teachers, especially our veteran teachers who have demonstrated excellence. All right, questions?
Just some rough math, just so y'all got some data behind this. An administrator with the number of staff that they have assigned to them, and that's your assistant principals that are certified to be able to do the evaluation. You're looking right now with the current system to about 50 to 100 hours that are burned throughout the year. Because some teachers are not just a one evaluation, there may be multiple evaluations because that concern or support may need to be there. So when you think 50 to 100 hours that an administrator may be taking out of their day, in addition to discipline, parent conferences, ARD meetings, all the things that they have, this could be a real game changer for them, but most importantly for our teachers and our kids, because if they're getting that continuous improvement and some feedback cycle, that's not just what I referred to as a compliance checklist, because I was an administrator who got to evaluate under T-tests, and it takes a lot of time. And a lot of it is just you're kind of checking boxes and getting through a system versus it actually being as meaningful as you need it to be. And I love that Mr. McLaughlin and Ms. Hunt really pulled out the great pieces of the T-test piece of that through that reflector group and the administrators. But this could be a real game changer with what we're asking our staff to do, and knowing that we've got, with them doing all of this, 11 schools with promising practices designation and 2 model schools for PLC. That's the most important work we're doing because that has the greatest impact not only on our students, but also our adult learners in the building.
Any questions?
Yeah, so, go ahead, Ms. Dixon.
Nope, go ahead.
Awesome. I love the idea of the continuous improvement in our process and, talking about caring for our kids as learners, but also caring for our staff as learners. And so, for clarity for us as a board, the policy that's being talked about, are we being asked to approve that today, the actual policy itself? Okay. And then number 2 is my interpretation. There's still data that's documented in these appraisal systems. You're just changing. So there is a review that occurs by our administrators, et cetera.
Yes, you want to say something to that?
I was just going to add that everything on the list that Mr. McLaughlin mentioned a moment ago that was in the blue box, all of that is still documented. And it's documented in a system that we have.
Yeah.
Called Perform.
I love that. Just to have the data to be able to make educated decisions on, and, it's important.
And I'm sure it was, or we probably wouldn't be talking about it, but the group that you guys kind of got feedback from, they all seem to like this a lot and are excited about it.
Yeah, they're definitely excited about it.
I mean, it probably goes without saying, this
Yeah.
seems way better than what it was, but I just was curious.
Yeah, no, the feedback was unanimous in support.
Oh, great, all right. There wasn't like the one, no, T-test till I die.
I don't think so.
No?
I
Okay.
don't think
Just
so.
that one teacher that got that T-shirt that says, "I love T-test." Actually, they didn't, that person didn't show up.
Yeah.
I had my formal observation and all I got was this T-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
Thank
review,
you all
appreciate
very
you all.
much. Okay, so that is 8C. May I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I got it. Let's see. I move that the board approve changes to the teacher appraisal system as presented by administration.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Linker. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wolf. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? That is all 7 of us, none opposed. So there you go. Get new T-shirts printed. Okay, that brings us to number 9, public comment on non-agenda related items. We do have one this evening. I need to read through a couple things here first. The speaker will be given 3 minutes this evening. The board will hear comments from the public. At this time, individuals wishing to speak must have added their name and topic to the public comment form online prior to the start of tonight's meeting. When your time is up, please stop speaking and return to your seat. You will not be given extra time, and please, hold on, where is it? Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying students, employees, or other community members by name. Okay, with that being said, Mr. Burns. Sir?
Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Thank you for giving me this moment to speak to you. My name is Sean Burns, and I have 2 sons who are going to be future Richland Raiders coming soon. We live in Artesia, just north of the new school. I want to express my concern on how the students who are within the walking distance of the school will get there safely starting in August. But first, I want to thank you for your service and your leadership to provide such great buildings for our children's education. Watching the construction of Richland High School the last few years is just, in such a short time, it's a remarkable achievement, and I thank you for that. But of course, it is also understandable with a complex project like this, there could be some areas of improvement, like how we get the students across First and Teal streets. My observations as of today is that there's no construction of a traffic light at the intersection of Taser Boulevard and First Street, which was recommended by the town of Prosper because it used to be just a three-way, now it's going to become a four-way intersection right in front of the school. Also, on the corner of First and Teal Street, there is a crosswalk, but there's no visible signs of sidewalks from that particular corner that leads the students to the school itself. I am concerned that given that we live in like a mile within the school, and so we would be walkers, that there's really no safe way for our students to cross First Street as a walker. Furthermore, the complexity of that intersection with young drivers going across, it just seems very dangerous, and I think that that's supported by the traffic study from the town. While I am aware that there's discussions between Elm Ridge and the town, and to me, it's just a nasty negotiation that's coming in there. I'm just really concerned that we need to have some alternatives of how to get them safely while that gets addressed. And so I really want to know what are the board plans to get our future raters safely to school while that gets figured out. There seems to be, in our community, not enough information of what's going on there in time for school, of what the board's going to do, despite the fact there's not a traffic light there or crosswalks. I personally would just recommend as a solution that for those students who live in the 2-mile walking distance from the school, be provided busing until a safe traffic signal can be established there. So please give that your serious consideration, and it would be tragic if anyone got hurt from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
Dr. Ferguson, do you have anything on that topic that you'd like to add?
I do, and thank you, Mr. Burns, for your kind words, and we agree with you. Richland is beautiful, and our buildings are gorgeous. We call them educational palaces for our children to learn in, so they're very fortunate. So thank you for those kind words and recognizing that. There's been an ongoing conversation between the Elm Ridge Water District, which is what Artesia is actually in, the town of Prosper, and then Prosper ISD, because your concern is what our concern is too, is the safety of the students. First Street is extremely busy with Rushing and Stuber. Windsong also kind of plays a role because you have kids trying to get to Rushing Middle School. And so we've had joint meetings. The town of Prosper has been a great partner with Elm Ridge because this really falls in the responsibility of Elm Ridge to put this in place. And so the town of Prosper actually stepped up and said, hey, we'll pay part of this, but this is what we need for y'all to do for the basic crosswalk, and then we'll prosperize it, right, and get the flashers and all the things on it. So we're really in a holding pattern because we need Elm Ridge to go ahead and make their move, because it's really their responsibility as that entity. Just like when we work with the city of Salina or the town of Prosper or the city of McKinney or Frisco in our matter, we work through them to get those crosswalks in place. Now, certainly, we will look at if there's nothing in place and Elm Ridge has not taken those steps forward, it doesn't matter, right? We want kids to get there safely, so we'll do what we can on our end to be able to help assist with that, but really the responsibility sits with Elm Ridge at this time. And I feel like the town of Prosper has gone above and beyond in the meetings that I've been in to really facilitate that and try to help get that in place so that when the school opens, there were things already in place, because this conversation goes back to about 2023, so it's been something that's been ongoing for quite some time with little movement from Elm Ridge Water District, unfortunately.
Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Okay, that now brings us to a report from the SUE.
Yes, so it feels like graduation was yesterday, but also a really long time ago, so it's kind of a weird place to be in. One of the things that we do to honor our kids as individuals and really our family's commitment to staying in Prosper ISD is honoring our K-12 students and giving them a special cord based on their school colors. And so I go over to actually an assembly and actually put it around each of their necks, which is a really cool thing, especially because I've been in the district a while. A few of them, I was like, I remember you being in a stroller when your brother and sister started school, and now I'm putting a cord around your neck. And so I guess that makes me old, but it's a neat moment for them and for me, I guess. And then we also honor our Superintendent Advisory Council, just for the community, for everyone's knowledge. I have an elementary advisory, a middle school advisory, and then a high school advisory. If you serve at any point in time during your high school years, then you are awarded a Superintendent Advisory Cord for graduation. So after I've done the K-12 kids, I also honor our advisory students with a cord as well, to just really honor them as individuals and let them know how much their voice and their leadership meant. But also, it's really neat to see all of the parents that come and then kind of flashing back in time as they come up and talk to you about their kids' journey through the district. And then graduations, Super Bowl of Education. That's what graduations are, because we are in the diploma business, right, Mr. Webb?
That's right.
And we're trying to make sure that each of those kids, 1,796 graduating seniors this year. We did have a very special graduation that most school districts dream of, but don't always get to do. But we had a special baseball graduation at PHS because they were still in a playoff run, and we're going to miss their graduation. So we had 12 seniors who got to go across home plate and hug each of the other 12 members that were graduating, and their parents were there and had a great time. And then certainly our more formal events that happened for both Prosper High School, Rock Hill High School, and Walnut Grove. And our kids, of course, continue to shine, and our staff does, and our parents' hopes, dreams, and aspirations all come to a moment, I feel like, at this time. And my dream is that any parents or family members that are in those stands look at each other and go, we couldn't have chosen a better place for our kid to go to school. And that's my hope for every family and every student. And I know that that's y'all's hope too. So we try our absolute best to make this the best opportunity that they have moving forward.
That baseball graduation was so cool.
It was very cool.
I don't know who was more excited, the kids or Mr. Jones, but he was so happy to do it. It was great.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was pretty fun. We got a lot of feedback from other districts about that, like, that was so cool, I saw that.
It was really special.
And then I want to thank the Prosper Education Foundation. One of the things that we are able to do, which is a big piece of retention with our leaders in this district, is to be able to take them to a leadership retreat where we, this year, because of our new strategic plan, really spent a lot of time talking about that strategic plan and what it meant for their work moving forward for the next 5 years, but also really spending a little bit of time talking about the impact of growth and the jobs and the responsibilities that they have as a leader, and really honoring them. We go to the Holdsworth Center, and if you're familiar with HEB, we'll have one opening in August. HEB, so Charles Budd is the owner of that, and he built the Holdsworth Center in honor of his mother, who was an educator. And so it is basically a retreat for educators to come and learn and get recharged. And our leaders absolutely love being able to go there to connect with one another, but also to be able to get some really important work done. Usually what we get is, I wish we could have stayed longer because we had more to do, and that's the story of forever in the business of education. So again, want to thank the Prosper Education Foundation, but also our leadership team for making that experience happen for each and every one of our leaders who are so very, very precious to the work that we do for students. Okay.
Okay, we are going to power through. I know we are running a little long here for Friday afternoon, but we're going to power through closed session and go to number 12, which is consideration and possible action regarding hiring contract personnel. May I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move the board approve the hiring of contract personnel as presented by administration.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wolf. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, I think Mr. Cavender got that one. Thank you. Okay, any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor? That is, in fact, all 7 of us, none opposed. So motion carries, which brings us to 13. The time is now 5:36 PM, and that is it. Y'all have a good evening and rest of the month.